Hey boys and girls, chapter 12, we made it to chapter 12. So we're going to start talking about something new. We're going to leave area and volume and shapes and things like that. And we're going to start talking about statistics. Okay, and statistics is just really a fancy way of saying data. And data is any sort of thing that you collect information on. So like if I were to ask you, what is your favorite type of ice cream? Your answer would be an example of data. Or how old are you? Or what's your favorite thing to do? How many people are in your family? Those are all examples of somebody asking a question to collect data. Okay? Now, as we're collecting data, there's different types of questions. And what we're going to focus on today is we're going to focus on what's called a statistical question. Okay? And so we're, of course, on lesson 12.1 in our books. But a statistical question, boys and girls, is anything that has an answer that can vary. So if I said to you, how many people are in your family? Okay, depending on who I ask, I'm going to get a different answer. So we would consider that to be a statistical question. Okay, an example of a question that's not a statistical question would be if I were to ask you, what day of the week is it? Okay, no matter how many people I ask, they're always going to answer whatever day of the week it is. Okay, or if you were to ask something like, is it a sunny day? Okay, you can ask 20 people, but they're all going to give you the same answer based on whether the sun is shining or not. And so it's still a question, but we would just say it's not a statistical question. A statistical question is a question that you ask that could have an answer that varies. Okay, in our book it says, what are the heights of my classmates on July 1st? Is a statistical question because height usually varies in a group of people. What is Sasha's height on July 1st is not a statistical question because it asks for only one piece of information at one time. It doesn't matter how many times we ask Sasha how tall she is on July the 1st, the answer is always going to be the same. All right, so our first problem in our book, boys and girls, our Unlock the Problem says, the New England Aquarium in Boston is home to over 80 penguins. Which of the following is a statistical question a biologist could ask about the penguins? Remember, boys and girls, a statistical question has to be a question that would have an answer that varies. Okay, so here's our questions, question A and question B. It says, how much does the penguin named Pip weigh this morning? Question B says, how much does the penguin named Pip weigh each morning on 30 different days? Okay, it says, identify the statistical question. Question A asks for Pip's weight at one time, right? It's asking for this morning. So it doesn't ask about a set of data that varies. Question A is not a statistical question. Okay, question B asks for Pip's weight at 30 different times, right? On 30 different days. And it is likely that Pip's weight will vary during this period. It'll especially vary, boys and girls, if Pip is home all the time social distancing and has lots of food to eat and not a lot of things to do. Okay? Question B asks about a set of data that can vary, so it is a statistical question. All right, so statistical question, boys and girls, needs to have an answer that varies. Now, sometimes we can have a statistical question where the answer doesn't necessarily vary, but in order to know the answer, we had to have gathered some data. So another way we can have a statistical question is if we gathered a lot of data and then based on that, we asked a question. So let's say, boys and girls, I asked our whole class what your favorite ice cream was. That's a statistical question because when I ask Derek, it's not going to be the same as when I ask Emma or Tayson. Okay? But after I've gathered all of that data, I can look at that data and I can say, oh, our class's favorite ice cream was Oreo. And I would know that, boys and girls, because of the statistical question that I asked. Okay, so another type of statistical question is when you ask a question that you can only get the answer based on a data set. Okay, based on information that you've collected. Okay, so another example we're talking about today is about bongos, and we have our bongo here. Kind of looks like a brown zebra. It says bongos are a kind of antelope that live in Central Africa. Bongos are unusual because both males and females have horns. Write 2 statistical questions a biologist could ask about a group of bongos. Okay, so we're going to kind of fill in the blank with some of these words. All right, so looking at question 1, we're going to come up with some statistical questions we could write about bongos. Okay, so it says, what is the blank in inches of the horns on the bongo that has the blank horns in the group? Okay, so we could say a statistical question could be, what is the length in inches of the horns on the bongo that has the, let's say, the smallest horns? Or boys and girls, you could ask for the biggest or the longest or anything like that. The smallest horns in the group. Different bongos will have different horn lengths. This question asks about a value in a set of data that can vary. So it is a statistical question. Okay, question 2 says, what is the weight of the blank bongo in the group? Okay, here we did smallest, boys and girls. Let's say, what is the weight of the biggest bongo in the group? Different bongos will have different weights. This question asks about a value in a set of data that can vary. So it is a statistical question.